following is a presentation of D2D Esports.
All right, everybody, we're live. This is not an actual race you're watching, not a live one anyway. This was the Rick Motec GT Challenge event from yesterday evening. Had a pretty fun race there. Good turnout. A lot of really good drivers in this series. The iRacing chat's a little loud here. I'm not sure why it's so much louder than the rest of the racing volume, but either way about it. What I wanted to discuss tonight, and there's a lot of go left from Robert Briss there. What I wanted to discuss tonight is my thoughts on iRacing. Now, I'm just Bobby Childs. I am not the sole voice of D2D Esports. I'm the team manager. I don't speak for everyone on the team, clearly. This is just me sharing my thoughts from my experience with sim racing since 2006, the NASCAR 2003 days. I've been a driver, I've been a painter, I've even been on mod development teams for NASCAR 2003. And so, of course, the first thing I really want to talk about is the state of iRacing. This is a fantastic sim, and I know there are a lot of detractors out there because iRacing is not without its faults. It began life as ported code that was ported code that was ported code that was ported code. So of course, you know, it's not necessarily as up to par graphically as maybe Gran Turismo or Assetto Corsa. I'm not sure what iRacing's plans are in the future for that, but one thing that you can say is they certainly have made a lot of improvements and enhancements to the graphics in the sim, the things we experience when we're racing now, from the dust particles flying up on the track, the tire smoke we saw just then. We'll see more dust. There's some more right there, a little more brake smoke. From watching the trees sway around the track to the beautiful, absolutely beautiful sunsets we get now with the day to night transition and HDR. There's a lot of great things going on with iRacing. The new God, I forgot how much chat was in this race last night. The new track model, track surface model, I think has been really excellent, controlling the transitions and the temperature in the track. It's not this, you know, immediate, 10-15 degree swing as soon as a cloud comes over. So it's really made putting the setups together a lot easier to handle. It's a lot easier to predict. It's easier to create a setup now that really works for you over the course of an event. They're doing a lot of great work. And I'm getting some feedback from a teammate right now. The car audio apparently still a little too loud. Turn that down a little more there. And hopefully he'll chime in and let me know if I got it. I've been trying to tune on this, so you'll have to forgive me if there's still a little more tweaking that needs to be done. Anyway, I think iRacing is in a great position right now. iRacing really is in a great position right now, moving forward. The new tire model, if any of you have used it, is absolutely amazing. I think it's going to change. It's really going to change the sim when you add in all the other things that even David Perel, if you guys watch his videos, he's a real life Ferrari GT3 driver, spends a ton of time on Gran Turismo, has done some Assetto Corsa, talking about how the curbs and the other things are, you know, a lot better in iRacing than some other sims. It really is positioned now to make some major improvements. But that's where the beauty of iRacing is. The flaw in iRacing, apart from, you know, apart from all of the like the tire model being messed up, the other things that people complain about, maybe the graphics engine is a little out of date, the audio engine's a little out of date, those things like that. The real problem that you have with iRacing is content, and that's one thing you're going to hear consistently from people, is slow content creation, not enough content, not a lot of content. And that's something that we're not going to get away from with iRacing, I think, ever. And I'm not going to say it's a dedication to realism. Yeah, that was a big Code Brown moment for me last night. I'm not going to say it's a dedication to realism. I'm going to say it's a dedication to accuracy. Because there are still things, again, the new tire model, things like that. There are things within the sim that do take a little bit of the realism away. So let's not call it realism, but they do work very hard to be very, very accurate. That's why there's some content we may never see. We never got the last generation GTE Corvette. And the reason that we didn't get it, most people know by now, is the constructor of the car refused to share data with iRacing. And because iRacing couldn't get the data, it was not going to put it in the sim. Plain as that. There are other sims out there, R Factor, for instance, where maybe you're going to get that race room. Maybe you're going to get the Corvette. But are you really getting the Corvette? I don't think you are. So we may not see the new Corvette. We may never see more GT3 cars with the with the extra emphasis on the IMSA partnership now, with TCR coming in and the Porsche Cayman GT4 being announced. Maybe we are going to start to see a return to GT3 development in the form of the GTD class for IMSA on iRacing, but maybe we won't. Who knows? Who knows where that's going in the future? So iRacing has a very specific model that it uses to do its content, and it's time-consuming and it's expensive. And that's something I think a lot of people forget. And I think there's a core problem with people these days that leads to that thought process. You know, that, oh, iRacing is charging me too much. I have to pay a monthly fee for iRacing. And then I have to pay for all this extra content. It's no different than you get for most games these days. You buy a game for your PlayStation, and it's, you know, 60 to 80 to 120 bucks, depending on the version of the game you buy. And then you still have to buy DLC for it later to experience the full game. Oh my God, yeah, this was another Code Brown moment. Oh boy, that was really, really scary. I thought my race was over right there. So, yeah, the software as a service is the model that most software development is going to, because of the buying software and then patching it is an outdated model. So why not, instead of having you buy the software on a one-time fee, just get you access to the software via a service and keep giving you the patches and let the software be the software. We don't need to do Windows XP and then Windows 7 and then Windows Vista and then Windows 8 and then Windows 8.1 and Windows 10. We don't need iRacing 1, iRacing 2, iRacing 3, iRacing 4. It's just iRacing. And you're getting a constantly and consistently updated experience. You don't have to buy another version of it. Just like any of you who've been around long enough for NASCAR 2, NASCAR 3, NASCAR Racing 2002, NASCAR Racing 2003. Major updates came with major costs. So instead of that, we now have a consistently evolving software package that stays up to date. And yes, everybody charges for DLC. Everybody charges for DLC, okay? iRacing's not alone in that. And I'm gonna talk about that in more detail in a minute. Right now, I want to touch on third-party app development. And I'm gonna address this from my experience as a developer, not only as what I do day-to-day developing software. Forget all that. When NASCAR 2003 was still at a real competitive level against iRacing, I joined up. I had a team of painters and designers under my name as BC Racing Designs, and we linked up with a gentleman by the name of Dennis Ryu, who had his own mod development group called Ryu Mods. And we went to work on a mod to put the 2010 version of the NASCAR Cup cars with the wing, the car tomorrow, in NASCAR Racing 2003. And there were other competing mod teams putting mods out. And I still, to this day, that we put out one of the best mods that had ever been built for NASCAR Racing 2003, apart from the original Project Wildfire mod, because Project Wildfire actually had access to the EXE. It was a semi-official mod that brought the truck series into NASCAR 2003, so it's hard to compete with that. But that mod that we put together, not only from the perspective of the 3D models to the templates we put together, was iRacing quality. That's the standard we had to judge it by. At that time, iRacing really still had not gained a ton of traction over NASCAR 2003 because of the tire model. And this is something that, people still today, the tire model's wrong, the tire model's wrong. Well, the tire model was definitely wrong back then. This was before even the first new tire model. iRacing, to me, at that time, was pretty much undrivable. The NASCAR 2003 tire model was so much better. Before the first new tire model came out, iRacing just... There's a reason NASCAR 2003 stayed viable as long as it did. And it was because of that, the original tire model. But anyway, the graphical standard we had to go against was iRacing. Those bodies were laser scanned. They had one of the best template makers ever, Brian Simpson, put the templates together for the iRacing cars. And we put together a package that was on par with that, running in NASCAR Racing 2003. And it took a lot of work. An awful lot of work. It took tons and tons of time. It was anguish. We had people leave the team We had to do tons and tons of research. We didn't have access to the cars. We're scanning photos. We've got people at the track at races getting shots from fan walks. It was a ton of effort that we put in. And this was something we released for free. We released it for free to the NASCAR Racing 2003 community. We had a whole separate version for plate races because they had a different spoiler layout for the plate races, and then they eventually moved from the big rear wing to a regular traditional spoiler, and we put that update out, and all of it was for free. We updated the templates, we updated the bodies, and it was all done for free. And the point I'm coming to with this is the way software development for third-party apps is talked about by the community today, by fans of iRacing, by people who run Race Room, Assetto Corsa. You can see forum posts, you can see videos on YouTube where people complain endlessly about DLC. They complain about the costs of subscriptions. They even call apps like Crew Chief, which you can hear on this stream. You can hear my Crew Chief key up even though this is a replay. They'll call that app free. And it's not. And they'll argue with you. Well, the developer made it free, so it's a free app. And that gives a bad impression to me. To me, it's a very bad impression to give. And it's rooted in the idea that so many things should be free. And so many things should be super low cost. Whether we're talking about iRacing, whether we're talking about music, other software, there's this idea that so many things should be free. Crew Chief is not free. Crew Chief is donationware. SimHub, the same way. I love SimHub. SimHub's the same thing. Now, SimHub kind of goads you into making a donation by flashing a message on the screen once a lap saying, hey, it'd be nice if you donated. Crew Chief doesn't even do that. The guys who are making Crew Chief and constantly updating it, making it better, making it work for so many apps, let you download it, and they got a link on their webpage that says, hey, if you like it, send us a few bucks. That doesn't mean it's free just because they didn't charge you at the initial download. They're trusting you. And what you are doing when you go around and tell people that it's free or that it should be free is you're betraying the trust those developers placed in you. Because I can tell you right now, we put that mod out for free from Ryu Mods, the Cup 10W, the Cup 10S. We put that mod out, we poured our heart and souls into it. Not only was it relentlessly criticized, constant flame wars on forums between it and the Bullring mod. It was stolen, ported into R Factor as someone else's work. So the real question I think you have to ask yourself when you're talking about the cost of iRacing and calling software like Crew Chief free, complaining about the new pricing model for JRT, ask yourself this question: how much are you worth? How much is your experience worth? How much is your time, your knowledge, your skill, your effort? How much are you worth as a human being? Is it okay for someone just to tell you that, hey, make me something and just give it to me with no compensation expected? Do you consider yourself of that little value that your time and your effort is worth no reinvestment from the people you're doing it for? And I want you to think long and hard about that when you're when you're talking about this software being free and iRacing being too much and all these other complaints that we see about pricing models. Because I can tell you right now, even from the perspective of what we did for NASCAR 2003, it was a ton of hard work. And I can tell you right now, iRacing is putting in a ton of hard work. The guys that make SimHub are putting in a ton of hard work. The guys that make Crew Chief are putting in a ton of hard work. Joel Real Timing is putting in a ton of hard work. And it is only fair, to give them a little something in regards, because otherwise you're saying that their time is worthless to you, their efforts are worthless to you, it has no value, and I don't think you would feel too comfortable with someone telling that to you. And that's just the God's honest truth. That's the bottom. You can't see that many people in society today standing up in front of a group of people and saying, I'm worthless, I have no value, take from me what you want, and then cast me aside. I don't see that happening. And, you know, maybe I'm being a little overboard, but it really does bother me to hear these kind of arguments being made constantly, as if, you know, Alexander Horn and David Tucker at iRacing, their time is just, you know, worth nothing. All the effort that these guys are putting in, it's just so meaningless. And that's what you make of it. You devalue them so much. And as someone who was in that position, I would have loved to have been paid for the effort and time I put in to making that Cup 10 mod, especially on the back end of what we got for our efforts, for the criticism, for the resentment, and finally the theft of our work. So I don't want to be too harsh, but I do want those of you making those arguments to think twice before you make that argument again. Think about what your time is worth. Think about your own value. And yes, it is your money that you're putting into iRacing. It has value. Well, so do the people that are building iRacing, the people that are building Crew Chief, and all these other third-party apps, and all this great equipment we have for sim racing. It is worth it. It is worth it to pay for these things. They do have value. And that's all I'm really trying to say at the end of the day. Let's not devalue things. Let's get over the idea that everything needs to be free. This idea of just free stuff everywhere. Okay? Because it so devalues the people that provide the free stuff. Okay? So anyway, that's all I really wanted to talk about tonight. That's been on my mind for a while. Hopefully we've got the stream sounding okay now. We've got the levels okay. Maybe the in-game chat is a little too loud still. We'll work on that. And here very shortly we will start streaming some races. Go ahead and hit the little bell button to subscribe so you'll know when we've got streams ready to go. And we'll be putting some new content up soon. Anyway, this is Bobby from D2D, signing off.